Hello, this is Jimmy McGee, President and CEO I'm hitting my watch party now, of the Impact Movement. Welcome for another time of Real Talk in the community. I'm excited tonight because we're going to have a conversation that is very, very important and dear to my heart. Tonight's guest first is Charity Haygood. She's a celebrity in the Impact world. She's an alumni of Impact, but she also, for real, is a principal in Newark, New Jersey, from pre-K all the way to 8th grade. Did I get it right this time?
Got it right.
All right. And then I got another dude too. He's not, his name is Darrin Franklin. Darrin and I have been praying for years together, but he's dear to my heart too. And he's a principal in Douglas County in a middle school. What's the name of your school again, Darrin? Uh-oh. Darrin, can you hear me? I don't think Darrin can hear us. So we probably need to ask him to come back in again. My text people, can you help Darrin? That's right. Tell Darrin to leave and come back. There we go. All right, Charity. How was your 3-mile run today?
It was good. It was good. I needed to go clear my mind, and so it was a good run. Now, it's funny. I was running, and I actually ran into one of my parents. She's living in one of the shelters nearby here, and so she was out walking, and so she was like, "Miss Haygood," so it helped me run faster. I said, "I love you."
Darrin Franklin, can you hear me right now? Darrin Franklin, can you hear me right now? Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Can't hear us. Oh, wow. He looks good, everybody. I want you to know that. Okay, start the convo with Charity. Okay, Charity. So I want to give you a little bit of an introduction. In terms of education, I've been a parent for 3 kids, and 2 sons have graduated college. My youngest one is ending his first year at Morehouse. We're a middle-class family. My wife went to University of Kansas. I won't bring that up too more. And then I went to, undergrad and graduate school. We've never moved since we've been in Atlanta, and we've gone to 10 different schools. Wow. We've struggled to educate our children. We went from private, we went to Pan-African, we went to charter, we even founded a charter school, and each of my kids went to 3 different schools. And my kids are intelligent. The oldest kid graduated as a salutatorian. And this youngest one, he got a 3.4 while sitting on his hands while he was going through high school. Everybody in my family, with the exception of myself, is a part of the National Honor Society. And so helping kids get an education, it's not just something that I felt was just for Black middle-class families, but also for the families around us. So all of my kids' careers, we would help single-parent homes go to school. We'll pick them up in rides. So this is a very, very important element. And my mother retired as a history school teacher. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell me, after you graduated from the University of Colorado, what was the energy you felt going into education?
Yeah. That's hilarious. Well, you know what? I've been thinking the growner I get, the more wisdom highlights that come into my hair. I realize that my mother is probably one of the smartest people I know, and that she had more of an influence on me than I even realized. I always thought like I chose to become a teacher, but I was realizing, so my mom, she did daycare, illegal daycare, I guess, in our house. We'd have like up to 10 kids sometimes, and it wasn't like sanctioned by the state or whatever. but we had a 2-bedroom house, and these folks like trusted my mom with their children. And these are like professionals who could have chosen to go anywhere else, but they chose my mom because she was amazing. Hey, Darrin, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, praise God.
So my mom did amazing things with the kids that were in, that she babysat. She taught them puzzles. She taught them how to read. She would do all these amazing things. And I realized I saw that. And then I also realized that we didn't have a whole lot of money at all. But my mom, every Christmas, prioritized giving our teachers presents. We gave a present to the mailman and to our teachers. And in fact, my mom legitimately had 4 jobs, and she had a 5th job selling Avon. And I realized she never made like a lot of money on that, but every Christmas, all of our teachers would get Avon packets. And so that's like kind of how she would get them gifts. And so I knew teachers were like really, really important. And my mom never, went to college. She actually didn't finish high school, but she was the smartest woman I know. She read every single day, and she valued education. And so I fell into becoming a teacher because I knew I wanted to work hard. And then, but in college, when I was like, where am I going to be a teacher? I knew that I wanted to be at the hardest place that I could be. And so I joined Teach for America. They kind of promised you that they would put you in the neediest urban or rural settings. And so I joined Teach for America, and I fell in love. Teach for America, you're supposed to go for 2 years and then go to law school or med school or whatever. But I just fell in love with my community in Newark, New Jersey, and I stayed. And so this September will be my 25th year in Newark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I live in Newark. I love Newark.
I love Newark too. You got a beautiful house in Newark too. So.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have a beautiful community.
You do. So let's talk about Darrin. Now, Darrin, when I met Darrin was trying to come on staff with Campus Outreach. And before I knew it, Darrin was migrating south to go to school, and he was getting a specialist degree, and he got a master's degree and a second specialist degree. Darrin, how did you end up landing in education?
As you said, I thought I was going into full-time Christian ministry, but it was a delay. God was delaying my entry into education so that he could put the right people in place to allow me to gain entrance. And so the coach that coached me at West Georgia and one of my best friends, they were working at the same high school. And so when it showed that I wasn't going to raise my support, and so obviously I wasn't going into full-time Christian ministry, I'm like, God, what is it that you want me to do now? I thought this is what you wanted me to do. But show me what you want me to do. And I started, I was selling computer software, and this was right when the Gulf War was started. So sort of like a time right now, no one was buying anything. And so I was just praying one day, God, I'll take anything. Give me a job. I'll take anything. And so the phone rang, and it was a high school buddy of mine who was calling me about his brother to go play football at the school where I had gone to college. And he said, hey, man, didn't you tell me you needed a job last week? I was like, yeah. He said, well, they're hiring. I said, I'll take it. He said, you don't understand. He said they're only paying minimum wage, which was $3.25 at the time. And he said, you don't understand. And we give 20 hours a week. And I said, it doesn't matter. He said, why? I said, I was just praying and asking God, I'll take anything. And so while at that golf driving range, there used to be some little kids that would come down from an apartment complex that was around the corner. Mm. And one day I made a statement to my friend. I said, man, these guys come down here every day and pick up golf balls for a Coke. And God said, that's not why they come there. And I said, well, why do they come then, God? And he said, because you guys give them meaning, value, and purpose. And at that time, I didn't really like kids. I didn't want any kids. And the girl that I was dating, which eventually became my wife, even talked about us breaking up because I didn't wanting the kids. But in that moment, God turned my heart toward kids. And I just felt for them. I saw myself in them. And so as I was working there was no epiphany about going in that direction. There were a couple of people that had come by. All they ever said to me was large or small in terms of the bucket of balls that they wanted. But we were out hitting balls with the kids, and a guy asked me on a Monday, hey, he said, hey, man, you're pretty good with kids. Where do you teach school? And I said, I don't teach school. And, we went on. 2 days later, a lady said the same thing. She said, hey, I've been listening to you. You must be a teacher. I'm like, no, I'm not a teacher. So that evening, God said to me, Darrin, did you hear what I was saying to you? I'm like, what? And he replayed those people's comments to me. And so I was like, well, Lord, if you're trying to tell me you want me to be a teacher, I hadn't taken a graduate exam, I don't have any money, you're going to have to get me in school. And so my devotion on one day was Isaiah 41:10, and it's been my verse that he led me into education, and it's been my guiding verse ever since then. And it says, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will, future tense, I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And so I went to West Georgia. I got accepted into school on something that I'd never heard of called post-baccalaureate status. And it just meant if you had good grades, they would allow you to take some graduate courses until you could get your test taken. So I got admitted into school. I started taking some class, signed up for some classes. I got back to work that later on that day, and my best friend told me that I had an interview on Wednesday. As I was walking across campus back to my car, I had an old raggedy car. I'm like, God, I can't drive this car up and down the road. And two guys walking behind me said, that looked like Frank. And it was two guys that I had played football with. So they invited me to live with them in an apartment. And at the interview that I got, the lady hired me. And so that was my entrance into education. Very divinely driven and orchestrated.
How many years you've been in education now?
29.
Oh, wow. So we got some veterans here tonight, y'all. So let me just say to everyone in our audience, tonight we're on Facebook Live. I'm going to ask some questions. As we try to go through this issue of education during COVID-19, if you have questions, please don't go to my watch party. Go to Impact Movement Facebook page, and you can write your question there, and then our team will present the questions to us. So I want us to get, before the pandemic was announced by the World Health Organization. So what I'd like you to do, Charity, describe your school and the environment that was happening and how you were dealing with education, and if there were any inequities at the time before the pandemic hit. Describe your school to us.
So I have an amazing school. My children and my families go hard, and they are survivors. They are fighters and conquerors. And when things are tough, they get tougher. And so it's not unusual for us to have lots of violence in our area. It's not unusual for us to have shootings. It's, a few months ago, we were in the after school program and I see sirens. And so I go to the window and sure enough, the police are shutting down the school. They won't let anybody come out because there's been a shooting right outside. And we all have to sit inside and wait until, and it's crazy when you know that kind of thing is more of an annoyance than like that shouldn't happen. Like shootings should not happen right outside your school. But for parents and a lot of kids, it was like an annoyance. Like, now I have to wait until this all gets cleared so I can get home. And then most of them right afterwards, we went out, granted, the back door, but then they all just walked home, And so there's a lot that goes on, but we carry on. And then they show up the next day and they just keep learning. Our kids, all of my kids, eat free lunch, free breakfast.
That means they're Title I, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we do free breakfast, free lunch. When we've thought about, I know that, everyone talks about, ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences. And folks often say that, if you have 4, then you're dealing with trauma, and you need to be able to work through that. When we have done, some studies, almost all of my children have at least 7. And so the trauma that we are exposed to and what we see, it's great. And that was before the pandemic. And so I've got, but my kids still show up. My parents still bring their kids. They keep fighting. They keep going. And so we have an amazing school. I have teachers that go crazy hard because it's hard. It's a lot, but that's the school that I'm at. We're at Avon. Our motto is achieving victorious outcomes now, in spite of everything else that's going on.
I love it. Now, how many students do you have in your school?
We have 563 now.
Okay. Wow. All right. Darrin, now describe us your school.
Well, it's not that. I can say that I did my time in a similar setting. I thank God for this place where I'm at now. It's a very diverse school in terms of ethnicity and economics. So we have 5 trailer homes and a KOA park that feed into our school. And then we have some kids that live in $300,000, $400,000 homes that feed into the school. And then in terms of the ethnicities, we are about 43% African American, about 38, 39% Hispanic, about 14% white, 2.5% multiracial, and about 1.3% Asian. And so there are enough students in the building that gives us a glimpse of what the world really looks like and what America is really becoming. In terms of, we've heard that terminology of melting pot. Well, they really see it at our school, and so but some similarities with charity. We're about 81% free and reduced lunch at my school. Our official number this year was 821 students. So roughly 50 of my kids are free and reduced lunch. And the vast majority of the attendance zone where the students come from is very, very wide. So the vast majority of my students ride the bus to school. They don't walk because it's too far for them to walk, and dangerous even if it's close enough because they have to cross busy thoroughfares. Our students have a sense of community in terms of accepting and valuing each other. And I don't mean to say that there's not teasing and talking about one another, but we don't have racial issues at our school. The students accept and value one another, and that's the beauty of the school, that you see that same family mentality among the staff members as well. New teachers to the building say they like the sense of family that they see at the building, and the teachers that are there that have been there longer than me and in shorter time as me say the same thing of that which they like about the school. That's what they like the most. In terms of academics, our kids struggle in terms of having a support structure in place that will propel them to the next level. I mean, in a large number of students. And I find myself many times calling students' parents, going by their houses. It's even before this COVID-19 thing, and even more so now. Can't go by houses as much because people will look at you strange, but I still make the calls. That's our primary struggle, is juggling the reality of their lives. And Chair talked about trauma. trauma in low socioeconomic areas is nothing new. Resiliency is an attribute that's commonly observed in students that experience trauma. Yeah. And so the struggle is trying to get our kids to buy into the way to fight through this to the end is to get a better education so that I can avoid and escape some of the challenges that I face as a child.
Wow. Now, so here's the deal, and I want to try to pivot towards COVID-19. The Impact Movement is a collegiate ministry. We serve Black students on college campuses around the country. And I know some people are imagining, if they're watching now, they say, so why are you doing this on school? Well, one of our attributes, we have a thing called 3 para. It's para-church, para-school, and para-community. And they're going to put it up on the screen so I can read para-community to you. And what we want to do, here it goes, it says all students become aware of the challenges and issues many encounter. Our desire is that they would learn how to provide a gospel-centered response that inspires positive change on their campus, in the community, and throughout the world. And so we have a belief that if we don't teach our college students in our space right now to care about the community on campus, the community in the chapter, but even more importantly, the community, the city, the environment around the campus, if we don't teach them now while they're in school, we believe, and it's a hypothesis, that they won't care when they graduate. They won't care about your schools. They won't care about their neighbors. They won't care about these environments. Yeah. And what we want them to see is that these issues are very important to them because they will become neighbors either in Newark or in Douglas County. So this is very, very important for us to see. I think the next thing, what we really want them to see too, is that many of our children, or excuse me, our students are still first or second generation graduates of college. Mm-hmm. So right now, this is having vast impact upon their worlds because they're removed from the environment that they were trying to escape from and move back home. So now COVID-19 hits. We got shelter in place. You're in Newark, and of course, Darren's in Georgia, and we've got 2 different scenarios of how people are addressing COVID-19. I think in both of your instances, school is over in terms of having students in school, but the issues haven't changed. Have COVID-19 brought any new challenges in your desire to educate your kids? And so I started with Charity first time. Darrin, I'll let you go, and then I come back with Charity. So has COVID-19 brought you any new challenges?
I don't think they're new. I think they're more defined. I think they're more they're intensified. So, for example, students having access to get work done, and what happens in families. For example, there's a family, parents super engaged. This is her second child coming through the school, but she went through a divorce last year, and so now she lost that income. And so she really hadn't had to have internet other than through her phone. Mm-hmm. But now she needs it. And both of her kids are A students, one at the high school, one at my school, but they haven't been able to get their work done. And trying to help resolve issues like that. One of my students' mother is a former student of mine. They live in an extended stay motel, which is about 3-4 miles from the school. They don't have internet. They live basically in a 1-room efficiency for women. And so it's just making those issues more lucid to us. They're showing a deeper clarity of some of the challenges that students are facing. Parents have lost jobs. One of the parents that came to get a computer for me last week, she said to me, Mr. Franklin, my husband nor I have worked since March the 13th. We haven't received a check since March the 13th. And so those types of situations only just bring about what was already there. It's sort of like raising the grain in a piece of wood. When you've sanded it down and then you apply some oil or shellac, the grain becomes that much more clear and defined. That's what COVID-19 has done. Are there new things? Yes, they're just manifesting in new ways, but they're the same issues.
Yeah. Wow. What about you, Charity?
Woo. Darrin said it. I agree. COVID just magnified what's already there. And I think our biggest thing is, I guess we've been able to hide some of the things because they're not out in the open. And so I think it's easy for folks to blame, oh, well, the child didn't get his homework done because make this excuse, or this happened or that happened. But this really exposes there are real deep reasons why a child is not getting help with homework at home. If mom is working, then the child is home by themselves with that work. And so now, whereas they used to just be home by themselves a little bit, now they're home by themselves all day, and supposedly, educating themselves. I think the biggest heartbreak that I have noticed is we were crazily blessed. Mike Rowe, the gentleman who used to do Dirty Jobs, now has a show called Returning the Favor. And so God blessed me in a crazy way. And he donated 125 Chromebooks to my school so that I could be one-to-one, because we were realizing that whereas folks would say, oh, we have internet access, or I've got a device, but they meant their telephone. And their telephone cannot serve for their child to do all of the platforms they need to do. Forget the fact that mom has to go work, so the child can't even use that device. And even if they could, if there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 children at home, one device is not going to suffice. And so our superintendent was amazing. He's so courageous. He's told all of the principals to deplete all of our resources and just send all of the Chromebooks home with the children. So we were like, yes. So we did that. And then Mike Rowe gave me the 125 more. So I had one-to-one. But then we realized our parents couldn't access the so-called free internet. Wow. It's not working. It's not happening. It can't happen. And so what we're finding is that my little babies have their little Chromebooks. They're so excited and they can't do anything with it. And so it's just glaring. The inequities are glaring. And this is why, when we want to know why are our children so far behind, because the playing fields are like,
yes,
here and down, down on the floor. They're so far apart. And this has just pushed it further.
And it's just exacerbated the conversation.
Right.
So, one thing I want to help our audience to understand, in 1954, let's get this straight. I wasn't born in 1954. and I didn't come 2 or 3 years later either. I want to be clear, so I want folk to know this. But in 1954, we had Brown versus the Board of Education. And it was allegedly the time for us to desegregate our education. What most people fail to realize in that narrative is that Thurgood Marshall was trying to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson, which was separate but equal. The idea that we can have separate schools with the idea of equal resources. And what he did was, he wasn't fighting for desegregation. He was fighting for schools to live true to the law. So if you're going to have a black school, make sure that black school has the same size bus, has all the things that the white schools have. And then when they discovered they weren't going to pay the money, they said, well, let's integrate them. And so what we see, though, even 60 plus years later, almost 70 years later, the inequities continue to persist. Yeah. But this is not new. I want to read one book, and then I'm going to tell our audience, get your questions ready, please. But there's this one passage I want to read to you. It's called Their Highest Potential by Vanessa Sidle Walker. And it's talking about an African-American school and community in the segregated South. And I think this is so profound, what I think of you guys in this process. It says, veteran teacher Reverend Wiley recalls that students felt free to come to you. They would talk about more than just class. They would talk about personal problems. Sound like you guys. Elementary teacher Belle Tillman agrees. Those kids would just come and get right down on the floor and tell you their problems. We were interested in not only teaching their arithmetic or spelling or what have you, we were interested in the whole child. On why students went to teachers in this way, one student recalls they were open, not above the students. You could relate to them all. And this one book is talking about the Caswell County Training School. And the author, her mom was a teacher there, and she was there, I think, for first and second grade. She later wrote a couple other books called The Lost Education of Horace Tate, and talking about that in these inequities, these teachers were trying to deal with the whole child. And you guys were saying the same thing. Y'all feeding kids 2 meals a day. You're dealing with the trauma of the environment that they live in, and then you're educating them. And so that's you. So do we have some questions that have come up? Because I got another one to ask if we don't. No? All right. So let me ask you this other question now. So they're saying now in some of the reports that everybody across the board in public school is falling behind. So when you hear that everybody's falling behind in public school, what does that mean for you in your environments? Go ahead, Charity. You start first, and Darrin.
Well, I mean, we know that when America gets a cold, Black folks get the flu.
That's exactly right.
Or COVID-19. And I think, you know, my husband has been saying it so well, like these cracks, you know, these might cause cracks in the rest of the society, but these are causing earthquakes in our communities. And so it's devastating. And yet the truth is, with Black folks, we just always, like, we feel it and then we're just going to go harder. I mean, the truth is we're just going to go harder. And so our families, our teachers, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Oh my gosh, like what a week. And I have the most amazing teachers. They are going so hard. They are figuring out how to do Marco Polo with a child who maybe can't get access to, you know, the devices, or they don't have a device, but maybe they can show them a little lesson through Marco Polo, and then the child can respond with a question. Or, you know, teachers are the key here. And I think that we can't quit. I mean, you know, every summer, it's so funny. People always ask me, Charity, are you ready to go back to school? Do I have a choice? I mean, the children are coming. The children are coming. And so our children, yes, are falling way far behind. I'll just say this. Our children, you know, we give them a test to figure out, you know, what they know, if they can recognize letters. Because if a child can recognize letters, then they can figure out sounds, and then sounds you can put together and come up with words, and you can learn how to read. But if a child cannot recognize letters, they're in a tough way. And so my kindergarten class, you know, when we went in, only 30% of my kids were able to even recognize that, okay, this is an A, this is a B, let alone the sounds. I'm not, you know what I mean? But when you're already that far behind, you just, it's hard. It's devastating. But of course, we're going to keep hope alive, and we're going to keep going. But it's devastating. And the world needs to know it's devastating. And as a society, we need to, if we really care about this, we have to try to at least get the playing field closer by doing something like making sure that every child has internet access. That just has to be a given. And that's something that as a nation, we can do that. That's not hard. We could do that. If we wanted to, we could do that. We simply don't want to. And so, yeah.
That's really bad. What about you, Darrin? Has when you hear that public schools are falling behind, how does that apply to your world in Douglas County?
I would say I'm going to start off with the last thing kind of that Charity said, keep hope alive. There's hope. There exist in my school pockets of excellence and brilliance. And it is those situations, along with my hope, that there are kids that were like me, that came from a broken home, that didn't have the right setting, but make it. And so those kids that are doing well, that are excelling, they're my encouragement. Those kids that I see that sparkle in their eye, but they have some hurdles and obstacles in their way, I try to focus on that and allow that to refuel me, because if John Hattie talks about something called collective teacher efficacy. And so if a person has a sense of efficacy, they make a difference. And so we see in the research that people that have a sense of efficacy have a high impact, or it correlates to students performing better in their classes. And so my goal as a leader is to make sure that I'm always in a position of health, that I can help our adults fight against the negative experiences that and the challenges that they face every day, so that we can not look in the moment. Because if people laughed at me. There's a girl laughed at me. I was a principal of a high school in another district, and she walked through the gate and she said, "What are you doing here?" And I pointed to my name tag, and she started laughing. She grabbed her sister and she said, "Look at here." And I said, God had a plan for me. So often we look at kids for where they are and who they are in the moment, without realizing that we need to look beyond the moment, because God does. That's what he said about Abraham. His commentary about Abraham was, against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and it was credited to him as righteousness. But that's not what happened. Abraham didn't believe. He laughed. He had doubts, but that's not what God declared about him. Because he got back on track. And so my responsibility is to try to get us and myself back on track. And the word of God is true. The word of God says you reap what you sow. So if you sow the good things, we can't look at trying to get fruit today, because the law of the harvest say you reap what you sow, you reap later than you sow, and you reap greater than you sow. So do things the right way. Kids get those things. They know intuitively and innately when we care about them, when we're loving them. And that's the gospel. Loving people and demonstrating our love through the way that we respond and relate to them, how we provide for them, whether it's material or emotional support. So are we getting behind in some ways? Yes, we are. We are. However, if we look at that through that lens of a deficit view, we have no hope. And I have a Savior that tells me I have hope. And the word Proverbs says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. Well, I have enough wrong in my heart all by itself. I don't need to do this other stuff. And so, yes, are there challenges? There are challenges. How are we getting behind? Going back to what you said, Jimmy, my mother graduated high school in 1956. And she talks about that landmark case as the end of us in the Black community, because we lost our hunger. We lost our thirst to aspire for more when we seemingly were accepted. And then as things got better, as one generation did better than the other, that sense of of a hunger and a drive to do more, some kind of way it evaded us. And so that's how I say we're getting behind.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up again, we only got 20 minutes left. And I see on my Facebook page or my watch party, people are posing questions. If you want to pose questions, you've got to go to the Impact Live Facebook page, and then they'll transpose that question to me. So please, if you got a question, go to the Impact Movement Facebook page. All right, here we go. Here's a question from Jeannie McGee. It said, what can parents, communities, churches, Greek organizations do to support children and education? Go ahead, Charity. Y'all doing a good job going back and forth.
I think it's about every single there's a school closest to you. And so you need to go to the school closest to you. I promise you, if it's in an urban or rural spot, they do not have internet access, the majority of them. And so I know one of our friends was just suggesting, what if a family decided, you know what, we're going to support a family for 1 month to let them get internet access and actually not only help them get the access, but then actually walk alongside them and help them understand, because grandma has no idea. That's not fair. There are some grandmothers who know exactly what a router is, but I got a router and I don't know what a router is really, you know what I mean? But so it's walking alongside someone and let's do this together, and then let them succeed with it. Let them be excited, and then plan up and figure out what plan can we put in place so that they can keep having that access. But I think it's finding in your little corner, wherever you are, whatever city you're in, find a school nearby. I think the other thing, would you pray for the wisdom and discernment of principals and school systems? I believe that we need that desperately right now so that we can make good decisions.
Excellent. How would you answer that question, Darrin?
Everything that she said, plus I would get involved in the life of the school. You can become a part of the PTSA as a community member. You can become a part of the governance board as a community member. You can serve. I know out in Douglas County, they have a program called Match, where you can serve as mentors, where you get a background check. You can come in and you can spend individual time with students. Yeah. It's just life on life. Wherever you can give a part of your life to a school, give it to the school. If it's something as simple as buying a pizza for a class that did well.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that. You take $30, Little Caesars pizza, you can buy 6 pizzas and reward a class that may have done well. Or create a competition among classes. There's every little thing that a person can do will help. But simply telling the child, even if you just come and volunteer in the morning and say, good morning, I hope you have a great day. Good morning, I hope you have a great day. They'll look at you strangely until you are consistent there. And then they will depend on you and accept you, because they are looking for people to love them and encourage them.
Yeah, consistently.
Adults and kids.
Shut up. Well, now, you're right. So I want to bring up 2 important things that should be said. One of the things that happened in the 1954 decision, it was an idea for resources, but majority of the principals had certifications and graduate degrees teaching. And then over the next 6 years, 69% of all of the Black administrators were removed from their jobs. And these were the gatekeepers for the type of motivation and education that you two are describing right now.
Yeah.
That's why, as principal and leaders, because you guys got 2 different layers. You're not only looking at the kids, but you're also trying to direct the teachers to be all that they can be on behalf of those students. And you still touch these kids. So we need to look at this. And then Charity, I never forget. This is one thing that I went to see Darrin almost at every school he's been planning. I go to visit him. On this one occasion, he told me there was this one man who volunteered over 300 plus hours. Darrin, was it 300 plus hours?
Yes.
And guess what? That guy didn't have any kids at the school.
Yeah.
He was a member of the local church. Yeah. And he went over there and volunteered 300 hours. Yeah. Because he cared about kids. So you think about what the question was. If we can get churches to think outside of the box, and get 10 of them to volunteer, they got to get their background checks though. Yeah. Right? But after they get their background checks, to go and give, what would you do with somebody who gave you 300 hours a year?
Listen, and I do really have some amazing volunteers that really come in, and they do things like just sit and read with a child. Ask them, let me see your planner. What homework do you have? That would be amazing. Amazing.
So even our audience right now, if we could think through this, because some of us, have kids that are gone. Your kids need us, don't they? Yeah. Don't y'all think they need us?
Desperately.
Okay. So any other questions? Because I got another one. I'm going to ask him in a minute. Any more questions? Gracie. So let me bring up a scripture to us. It's Jeremiah 29:7. And I love this passage because what this does, it says this. It says, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. Yeah. And pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare, you will find your welfare. And the thing why this is such an important part of para community for us as Impact is that unfortunately we have a theology today in our Christian world that is always about us, but we never realize that God blesses us with the idea for us to be a conduit to bless others. Yep. Or as we bless others, we are blessed. It's the idea that if this school is suffering and my kids are not suffering, then what this scripture is saying that my kids are suffering because other people's kids are suffering. We need to raise this value of realizing it's not just us taking care of our kids. There's a phrase in South Africa that says, any child is my child. Yeah. And that's what we need to raise up again in our community. That's what Horace Tate, in the Lost Education of Horace Tate, that's what he did when he was a part of the Georgia Teachers and Education Association, galvanizing principals and teachers to care about everybody's kids, not just their own kids. So I'm gonna give you one last question or two. We got 8:48. Now we almost got the end of the year, and June for you, Charity, and I think this month for you, Darrin.
Correct.
If you think about ending well, if you could tell our audience anything, what's the one thing you really feel like they need to know that you in need of or you desire to end this semester well, or end this school year well?
That our kids have a sense of hope, that people care for them. And so I think about not only the students that I serve, but my daughter who's a senior, and she's gone through these years of school, and that capstone activity that she was looking forward to is not going to be there possibly. And so kids need, I think about the kids at my school, I need to find a way to celebrate them and say to them, thank you for what you've given. And so I think about the woman with the flour or with the corn. We need to celebrate what somebody has given, not the lack thereof. And so if we can celebrate what they have given and focus on that rather than what hasn't happened, that will help us to end well.
What about you, Charity?
Darrin, I think you said it well. I think that it is, I know that the idea this week is that we were supposed to take my little school mascot and go do some long distance excitement. Yeah, we'll ring the doorbell and then run down and just cheer with the mascot. All the students that received honor roll last week, and to encourage them to keep going. I need my kids to know that no matter what happens in life, like this has been hard, there's harder things that are to come. And so we've got to figure out, because our kids and our communities, we have grit. And so it's about figuring out how to just keep that happening. But then I think if I can figure out how to have the family that really has been able to be successful, even though mom's been at work and the kids are there, but somehow they've still figured out how to stay on honor roll, even though, for example, they don't have the internet access, Darrin, like you talked about. But if they still were able to be well, how do I partner that parent with another parent who maybe didn't do so well? How do I do that? And if I can figure out that, because they keep talking about this is happening again. It's not like this is the end of this. They talk about it happening again in the fall and stuff. But so if we can figure out, if we can tap into those folks that have done this well and figure out how to partner them with other folks. And I think also finally what Darrin said, it's about celebrating our kids, like especially the kids that would have had their little celebration to go from kindergarten to first grade, or pre-K to kindergarten, or from 8th grade to high school, or high school to college, or college to, as a community, if we can figure out how to celebrate them and just love on them like crazy, or even after, when this is far gone, recreate it somehow, that would be awesome.
Wow. And, there was a time, I know when I was a kid, which was far, but not that far apart, we used to hear on the radio every once in a while that this generation of Black people have exceeded the previous generation. And it would be on public radio. I mean, I used to hear it on WJPC with Tom Joyner, or when he was on WVON with Tom Joyner. They would have that. I haven't heard that in a long time, how this generation has exceeded the previous generation. But this generation, this COVID-19 is something special. Unfortunately, I heard news today that they expect a vast increase of deaths over the next 30 days before June 1st. And so you're in two different areas. You're in Newark and Darrin's in Georgia. How are your children experiencing death from COVID-19, and how vast has that experience been for you?
Oh, our families are absolutely huge. Everybody knows somebody. Everybody has a grandma or an aunt or an uncle or a sister or a brother or a church member. Everybody knows somebody. Here in Newark, everybody knows somebody who has been infected and died. Guaranteed. And it's devastating. I do believe, though, even as, like Darrin was saying, I believe that what the enemy intends for evil, God will turn for our good. I believe that, but it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. The deaths and the fact that, there are so many deaths, like the funeral parlors can't keep up with them. It's crazy. It's terrible. And I know that when I look on the news and I see other folks so eager to get back at it, I truly believe it's because those folks have not experienced the death that we've experienced. And so it's a different reality.
Yeah. Yeah. We have one more question. Go ahead. Let's get it in. This is the last one. All right. This is from Johnny Brown. How could schools moving forward look differently to reach our kids and impact parents? Okay. So now he's asking a question for reimagining what schools look like going forward. So go ahead, Darrin. Why don't you start off and then we'll end with Charity?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. this challenge is an opportunity. And so with some of the tools that, I mean, the district has already, we have a partnership. Google has a data center in Douglas County. So we've already had a partnership with Google. Our teachers had Google Classroom all year, but we weren't maximizing Google Classroom. And so what I'm excited about now is that whole suite of Google tools to be able to bridge the gap. So many times we wanted parents to come into the building for a meeting. We don't need to do that. Let's schedule a Google Meet and we can share with you whatever we need to share with you digitally, or we can send it home with you by your kids to engage parents that way. I envision being able to try to have whole school meetings similar to what we're doing right now, having someone to moderate questions and response, because it's a lot easier for a parent to stay at home and participate than to drive 20, 15 minutes to the school and sit there at a meeting. And so just leveraging technology to help us foster greater relationships, whether it's support of the parents. I'm trying to think about how I can creatively use funds to create. We used to have something called homework hotline when someone called on the telephone. Well, we need to morph that into homework hotline through Google Meet.
Yeah.
Teachers can actually walk students through whatever their support is for the particular subject. So I'm trying to figure out those nuances within the budget to figure out how we can provide that. So that's a quick things that I've been thinking about along those lines, reimagining schools.
I'm writing notes. That's what I've been doing over here. Collective efficacy and parent meetings through technology. And excellent. Thank you, Darrin. I'm writing my plan for next year. And so these are going to go right into them. So thank you so much. And boy, I agree. I think what I've noticed is, and what I'm excited about is figuring out how to use these platforms so that we can really have more tailored instruction. And so that we can do it in more, in smaller groups and making sure that it really is specific. And it also, for when we have children that they're absent, they can still jump online. They can be
exactly right.
They don't have to get anybody else sick, and they can sit from their bed. Instead of watching TV, they will watch their teacher. So I think that moving forward, we can use some of these tools that we've figured out so that we can continue the learning. I think the thing, though, that must happen so that can happen is we must ensure that every child has access to the internet. Without that, we will
be in the same.
Just throw our hands up. We have to have the internet. That just has to be a given. But then once we have that, we can utilize it.
Excellent. What most people don't realize, you guys are essential workers. Mm-hmm. You guys weren't allowed to stay home. You were working for us. I saw pictures of Darrin feeding people at school, seeing lines of cars come through for Title I breakfasts and lunches. I imagine you were doing something similar. Is that true, Charity?
It is, yes.
And I remember chasing you down because you were getting Chromebooks and going home, putting Chromebooks in the hands of families. Yeah. And I was chasing both of you down because you don't have a 9-to-5 job. You guys got a 9-to-9 job.
Right.
And you wake up and you think about these kids as your kids, and that's what I appreciate by you guys. I want to thank you for just this Monday evening. I'm praying for extra sleep for you guys because you got 4 more days. But I really appreciate y'all helping us and our audience understand that COVID-19 is having a vast impact to children around us. And for some of my college students, it's their brothers and sisters. Yeah. And for some of our college students, some of them, it's their own children. And for our alumni, it's their kids. And for our donors, it's their kids. And so I'm hoping that we can come out stronger as a community because of these conversations. And I want to say thank you to both of you guys. I have such vast respect for both of you. I got one last thing to say. Next week, the next conversation is going to be with some of my partnering organizations to talk about the challenges to do ministry through this vehicle of the internet. And so we're going to have Young Life, and I think she's on here now, a young lady named Shaylin Hardy from InterVarsity. And together we're going to talk about How do we do ministry to Black students in light of COVID-19? I hope you guys would join up for us next week. But I want to say thank you again to Charity Haygood. Ryan, love you. I'm going to get Ryan back to your husband. Love to Tawanda, who gave Darrin away for us tonight. Get some rest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
See you next week, guys.
Thank you, Charity.
Nice meeting you, Darrin.
All right. Bye-bye.
You guys stay on until afterwards. Okay.